Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And today it is time, once again, to go Persona 4? How about some more? We have continued playing Persona 4. We have finished Risei's dungeon. We have gone into the Void Quest. And we have checked out Naoto's dungeon. And so we have some ideas. We have some thoughts. And we're going to discuss this section of the game. So joining me, as always, Pete Busby. Hello, Pete.
Hey, what's going on? We talk a lot about teens on this podcast. You can think of it as almost a public service we do. So I think it's time to keep doing it. These teens less mean than some other teens we've talked about, but far hornier. Far, far hornier. This week's fun fact is about spiders. Basically the teens of the insect world.
Oh, of course. Everyone knows this.
Everyone has called them that.
Yes, but this is from an article in New Scientist. I'll just read the title because it's a good title. Spiders think with their webs, challenging our ideas of intelligence. So apparently spiders use their webs in very sort of cool ways we didn't know about, at least before 2020. So not only do they sense vibrations on them, and they can tell the difference between bugs or sticks or wind and things, but they also use them to sort of filter sensory input. So they'll like pull a line taut, and they'll be able to sort of tell what's going on there. They'll let one slack and stop paying attention to it. So basically it acts as sort of like a cognitive filter, so to speak. It's a sort of theory that's called distributed cognition. So check it out. Spiders in their webs. Terrifying, horrible. Don't want them anywhere near me, but kind of cool.
So you're saying it's kind of like putting blinders on a horse. Like they're just like, I don't care about that section of the web.
Kind of. But like if the horse was able to put its own blinders on.
Exactly.
You know?
They're
horses
choosing.
can't because they're dumb.
Okay, better analogy. It's like a pirate. When a pirate puts the eye patch on, they're like, I don't need that eye. That eye's dumb.
Exactly like that.
That's not what the eye patch is for.
Shh. Spiders are like the pirates of the...
Supposedly with night vision? Okay. Is that true?
That's what the Mythbusters said.
Okay.
And who am I to challenge them? No match.
If you do lose an eye, you could put an eye patch on, but it was for when you go under the deck and then you swap to the other eye because that eye has been in darkness the whole time, so you don't need to adjust to the light.
Exactly. It's a Bane situation in Batman. He was born in the darkness.
Oh.
Molded by it.
And that other voice you're hearing is M. Palladino. Hello, M.
Hello. I'm back from streaming this game for 6 hours, and I've had enough of it.
I'm back from streaming this game for 6 hours, and boy, are my arms tired.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, without further ado, before we get into the show proper, our normal housekeeping, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens@libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can send in emails. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And if you were to do so, you would get access to our Discord, a variety of fine discussions. And if you were to post in the Discord, you might end up on the Discord report.
The Discord report. Boop, 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 boop. This week on the Discord report, do you know what a yolk is? Why?
Excuse me, what'd you call me?
I think it's an acronym. YIIK.
Oh, Y2K.
Oh, I should have known that.
Yeah, it's a game.
Anyway, it's a game that came out. Jeff brought it up. It's a game you can play.
But maybe don't.
But maybe don't. We were talking about that in the Discord this week. Other things in the Discord. Let me check my threads here. Anything going on in the basketball world?
Yes, we'll hopefully have a Balls Deep episode soon because we've got a lot of stuff happening. Team USA
Crazy stuff.
won the Olympics, gold medal, both men's and women's 3-on-3. Was there men's 3-on-3? I didn't see it.
Yes, there was.
There was? Who was in it? Did we send anyone good?
I don't know. I only know that the Chinese team, one guy scored 17 points,
That's
and
a
their
lot.
team lost 21-18.
Fuck. That's no good.
Nice.
USA men's 3-on-3. Because I didn't see any coverage of this. Who's the men's?
I don't think
USA
the
basketball?
NBA guys played.
Who did we send?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, we sent no NBA guys. We've got a guy from Harlem who's 33. A guy from Indiana. Oh man, we did not send our best to the 3-on-3. We did send some of our best for the women's 3-on-3, which is why we got the gold there. The Bucks won the NBA championship. We'll talk about that at some point. And the draft happened, and the NBA Summer League is happening right now. So a lot of stuff.
Free agency was a little wild too.
And free agency. So we've got
One more basketball stat before we
go
move
for
on.
it. Do it.
The average height of the U.S. women's basketball team was taller than the tallest player on the Chinese women's basketball team. Average height of U.S. team 6'4", tallest player on the Chinese team 6'1".
What? I can't believe that the Chinese team doesn't have at least a single player who's over 6'1". That's crazy.
It's crazy.
I mean, Brittany Griner by herself brings the U.S. team up quite a significant amount because she's
like 6'8".
I think 6'8".
Yeah.
Like legitimately was scouted for the NBA, like a freakish athlete too. So like that helps, but yeah, it is wild when I watch WNBA games and like most of the power forwards are like 6'4". I'm not used to it, but it's super great. Like the women's team crushed for most of the tournament. I did not follow much of the Olympics, but the men's team had a bad showing in the original like group rounds. They lost to France, and then they went on to beat France in the finals. So that was cool. Other things going on in the Discord. The stream schedule has changed. You found your niche in streaming.
Yeah, I realized that no one streams the Eternal card game, and so I ended up having 2 days where I got like over 100 viewers, which is about, as I said, 98 more than I usually have. So that's been going pretty good. I'm pretty close to reaching affiliate now, which is nice. I only need like 2 more followers, I think. So if you want to watch me stream some games, I'm at GameMakerM. And everyone else is also doing their streaming. ZP is apparently fallen in love with Grandia 2.
Yeah, at this point, he's at the
metal.
I think he just beat Grandia 2, but you can see that on twitch.tv/zombiepie. I'm doing... So I just finished Roguebook. I beat level 15 of Roguebook, which is the max thing. It's got kind of a Hades situation going on where you like turn on difficulty and keep adding more and more difficulty as you want. So 15 is the max you can do. And after that, I am now playing Monster Rancher Battle Card Episode 2, keeping up with the tradition of picking the second game in a series that we have established for this podcast.
Our usual strategy.
Well, they figured it out, of course.
Did they?
I have no idea. I never played Monster Rancher Battle Card 1, but it's pretty good. I could say that. So far, so good.
What is this game? Is this game old game?
It is a PlayStation 1 card game. It's kind of got an RPG element to it, but it's Monster Rancher, so you can put CDs into your PlayStation to get new and exciting cards. So I used Billy Ray. Stevie Ray Vaughan's greatest hits. I put in all 3 discs because he's got that many hits. And it gave me 3 cards,
Wait,
one of which was...
Hang on a second.
Yep.
You can just put in like any random CD?
Yes. That's Monster Rancher's whole thing, is you put in CDs. On the PlayStation 2, it was random DVDs, and it would spit out monsters for you. So Stevie Ray Vaughan's greatest hits gave me like Rapid Punch. One was called, I think, Hat Trick or something. It was a character hiding in a hat. And then one of them was called Gas, and it was a rabbit farting.
Cool.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a different little gadget from the early 2000s, I want to say, which was called scanners.
Yeah.
Where you would go around and scan barcodes and get little monsters and fight with your friends.
I do remember that.
Yeah, you can get monsters from your, can of tomatoes.
Yep. Just go to the grocery store and scan everything, and maybe one of them was good.
Do you remember, too, there was like a product for, I think it was the Game Boy Advance, where it was basically a card scanner, and you could like scan cards to play little arcade games.
Yeah.
But it took like 5 cards per arcade game.
Yeah.
I think I have one of those actually lying around somewhere. Because
what a horrible idea.
It was one of those things where Pokemon had a like legendary you could get only through that. And so I was like, I gotta find this weird fucking accessory.
That sure is a Nintendo way to do things.
Yep, just sat collecting dust for the next 20 years.
They made exactly one game for it. That game was dope, and then nothing else. I mean, did any of y'all ever get the Game Boy Color printer?
I remember the Game Boy Color printer.
It was phased out by the time I had a Game Boy.
Way to go. I didn't get it. I had a friend who had one. And I was like, what do you do with it? And they were like, print really bad pictures.
You can print postage stamp size pictures that are in grayscale or black and white.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want that?
So for everyone who's listening who's going, Grandpappy, stop telling me about your Game Boy Color printer. I'm sorry. I apologize. We'll go back to modern games like Persona 4. So, and I mean, I guess, it's time for my shout out. I have a quick shout out. One good, one bad. I watched The Suicide Squad. That movie's pretty good. James Gunn knows how to direct a movie.
It's an upgrade over the previous one.
Oh, for sure. And I think that some of the characters, TDM, or is it the Detachable Man? That's
TDK, the Detachable Kid.
Right, the Detachable Kid. Nathan Fillion's character, underutilized. Weasel, underutilized. But I think a lot of great characters, great use of the weirdness of the DC back catalog, which is what James Gunn specialized in the Marvel Universe. And then a shout out that's slightly less fun. Have either of you watched The White Lotus on HBO?
No.
I've not. I'm familiar with the premise, didn't bother watching it.
Okay.
What is the premise?
The premise is 3 rich families go to a hotel in Hawaii, and they're all terrible in different ways. And how their terribleness impacts each other and the staff of this hotel, and how their relationships evolve. The families are a newlywed couple with one person who... The husband is from a wealthy family and is just a douchebag, and his wife, who married him after only knowing him for like a year, slowly realizing that he's a terrible person and she hates everything about him. There's a family who the mom is a CEO who like worked her way up, #girlboss style, who's just insufferable. She has 2 kids, who are a kind of video game nerd loser is how they basically depict him, and a daughter who brings a friend. Her daughter just constantly throws out internet-y terms that suck shit, Like, she calls everything woke all the time and says neoliberal shill, and it's an HBO show. And her husband is a horny asshole. So they're terrible. And then the last family, I guess she's not so much a family. There's a woman who goes alone to try to spread her mother's ashes in Hawaii, but instead she gets wrapped up in like the lives of hotel staff members because she's an alcoholic and is dependent on others. So it's just kind of rich people being opulent and terrible to each other. It's one episode to go. I don't know that I recommend it. It's very pretty to look at. It's well shot, but it might be the most cynical show I've ever watched.
Yeah, it sounds fairly insufferable.
You'd be better off, like, if you wanted to watch rich people getting their comeuppance being terrible, you'd be better off going with Succession, I think.
They don't seem to be getting their comeuppance. Like, the thing that is holding me in is that the very first scene of this show is set in the future. It's set at the end, and the terrible husband is watching a casket be loaded onto his plane, and he is not with his wife at the airport. So that's the first scene of the show, so it's not a spoiler, but they said that's a body and it's flying away. My hope is that one of these terrible people dies, and I'm just rooting for who it's going to be. And I'm not sure who I want it to be yet, because they all should die. They all should. I want all of them to have bad ends.
How many episodes or seasons is this?
I think it's one season and it's 6 episodes. We're on the 5th right now, so next Sunday will be the end.
Okay. They could string that out for another, 4 seasons, probably.
I mean, you could send rich assholes to Hawaii once a year for a nice show if you want. But so far, it seems like this is less these rich people will get their comeuppance, and more like, actually, there's nothing you can do to stop wealth and privilege.
Great.
Like, everything that's been done to stop these people or give them comeuppance has bounced back at the service workers who have tried it. So that's fun. Like I said, one of the most cynical shows I've ever seen. So without further ado, let's go into Persona 4 Golden. When we last
Before we do.
Oh, yes? Go ahead.
Do you know the Game Boy Color printer was sold for $60, which means in today's money it's worth $125?
Oh my god. That is insane.
So if you have one, try to eBay it.
That's why.
Anyway.
Okay. Look, if you want to print high quality images, Game Boy Color printer. When we last left our intrepid Persona 4 heroes, we had saved Kanji Tatsumi and Yukiko Imagi from the TV world. We've learned that there is a TV world. We have assembled an investigation team to solve 2 murders that occurred at the beginning of the game. A local student who is a classmate of the main cast, and a local TV announcer who is also killed. The police can't figure things out because it is supernatural in nature, and although the main character lives with a police officer who is your uncle, he does not tell them shit. So we're trying to solve it. These teens are out on a mission, and the next person to be kidnapped is a local, I guess she's a national pop star. She is an idol, but she resides in Inaba. Her hometown is Inaba, so she is back in town. Her name is Rise. What's her last name? I want to say Kujikawa, but I'm not sure. My heart says that. But Rise, or Reset, if you are going by her idol name. First question: are either of you familiar with idols and idol culture?
In the vaguest sense of the term.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say I'm familiar with them, but I know of them.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of a very specific Japanese thing. Well, at this point, it's not necessarily even Japanese. It's mostly Japan, Korea have a lot of idols. But the idea is, young person who is Maybe they're a pop star. Maybe they sing. Maybe they dance. Maybe they are just famous and young and pretty. And they just go on like variety shows and shoot commercials and like they're talking heads on TV shows. It kind of depends on what their path to idoldom is. But think of it like socialite model singer combo. It's like all pop. Anything that like you could put into popular culture, an idol will try to do to get by. So she is kind of that. And when we first encounter Rise, she is working at a tofu shop because her grandma owns the local tofu shop, Marukyu Tofu. And the team tries to, get close to her to warn her that she's going to be kidnapped, which kind of weird. That's coming on a little strong. But there's a bit of a red herring because we warn her. We think that she's going to be okay because we're like the investigation team is keeping constant track of her. But alas, there is someone who throws us in the wrong direction. What derails the tailing of Rise and keeping her safe?
We look away for about 30 seconds, and then the detective partner of your uncle goes in there, and he's like, I just want to have a word with her. And then we look back, and she's gone.
Well, there's a pervert.
Oh, right. There is also a paparazzi that's trying to get her picture. We chase him down, and then that whole thing happens. But we got that one paparazzi off the streets. So
yeah, you get this one dude who's got like 7 cameras, who's climbing up into the window of a... Let me just check this. Rise is 15.
Yep. Yes, she is.
Climbing up to take a picture in the window of a 15-year-old. And you chase him down. He gets arrested. And it's always a good sign when someone's arrested and he says, I know my rights. I'm allowed to take pictures from outside. That's always good. It's like when someone quotes an age of consent law to you. It just lets you know what sort of...
You sure have those memorized, don't you? That's a little weird, huh?
I'm allowed to climb this telephone pole and take these pictures into this bedroom. So he gets arrested, and in the 2 seconds you're gone, she gets kidnapped. And so we go into Rise's world. Pete, what is Rise's inner dungeon? What is her deal?
So Rise, her whole setup on the Midnight Channel is basically, it's a striptease. Like, she keeps saying she's going to bear all for the cameras, and you get in, and it's a strip club. I think Kanji is the only one who like recognizes it up front. Everybody's sort of like, this seems untoward, and Kanji's just like, oh, it's a strip joint. Cool.
Yeah, everyone's like, this is one of those places you see in resort towns.
It is like very circumspect. Like, we have an inn, but this is not what our inn does. And then the whole thing's a little sketchy, but the worst part of the whole thing, at least in my opinion, are the noises the boss makes.
Oh, yeah.
So there's
and
like, there's a lot of, there's a lot of gyrating, a lot of thrusting, a lot of moaning, and then also some just sort of moist squelching noises.
Mm-hmm.
Very distressing. Very, very distressing.
Yeah, and before Rise's shadow, like, goes boss mode, she's depicted as Rise in a bathing suit. And when you first see Rise, like, you try to convince her she's a target because she's on the Midnight Channel. And she's like, no, that can't be me because the person who's on the Midnight Channel is bustier than me, basically. So we start getting the sense that the people who are showing up on the TV are not necessarily, or at least during the Midnight Channel, they are not necessarily accurate representations of the character in question. They are modified in some sort of way. And then once we get in the TV, her whole thing is, I want to bear all. I want to show everyone everything. With the implication being that this 15-year-old's going to get naked on TV.
And boy, are people excited.
Boy, are people excited, including, like, in the background when you go to those places, when you have some cutscenes in the strip joint, you can hear hooting, like, cheering from an invisible crowd, which I think this is the first time we see that in this game.
We've seen viewers, like people outside of the TV world, who are apparently seeing in, but this is when they're like going crazy. They're losing their minds over whatever Rise's gonna do.
Yeah, so we start getting the sense that the Midnight Channel is getting more watched by randos. And the further you get in, the more it becomes clear that, again, this seemingly straightforward, I'm going to bear all, actually it's a metaphor. Pete, how would you describe Rise's actual inner struggle, like, when broken down? What is this metaphor actually trying to do?
I'm trying to remember, because I was, basically just disappointed she wasn't going to bear all, so I checked out. But it's a very sort of it's shadow adjacent, right? That nobody knows the real me. I feel like I've been hiding behind this persona for so long. Do I remember it right?
Yeah, so that's basically it. That
Yeah.
she wants to show off the real her. She thinks that Reset, which is her idol persona, is not the real her, and so she wants people to see, the real person behind the mask. But obviously, it's I'm going to bear all, and it's nudity instead of her real personality. And she kind of gets shortchanged. She doesn't have quite as long of a dialogue with her shadow as the characters before her, because this dungeon's a dual dungeon. Once you beat Rise's shadow, which, as you said, it's a stripper on a pole that does a lot of weird moves when it casts spells at you. It grinds on a pole and spins around and stuff.
Yeah, the spell casting is generally handless. I think we can put it that way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she will do a swing for a physical attack, but otherwise it's a lot of crotch coming at you. Once you beat Rise, her shadow kind of enters God mode. It becomes unable to be hit because her power is actually scanning. She is going to be kind of the new Teddy for your party, letting you know what enemies' weaknesses are. And the party's going to be destroyed. They're about to lose. But then an unlikely hero steps forward. Who's this unlikely hero? How does this party get out of there?
So the way the party escapes is Teddy runs in and blows up or something and destroys the monster, becoming Flat Teddy, which is very strange.
Unsettling
He's
to look
hollow.
at.
He's hollow inside there, so he's fine. It is very unsettling to look at. More unsettling is what happens afterwards, which is where Shadow Teddy shows up, and he has very scary eyes, and a very deep and frightening voice. And he does not end his sentences with Kuma, which is Teddy's affect in the Japanese, which makes him twice as unsufferable as in the English. So, yeah, and then he has the same situation that we've seen over and over again, where the shadow taunts him, and then we gotta fight a gigantic Teddy with a hole in his face.
Yeah, so Shadow Teddy, I guess, Pete, how would you describe Teddy's internal struggle?
Shadow Teddy basically has seemingly no connection to real Teddy. His eyes are yellow. Teddy's are a deep and limpid blue. But Teddy's internal struggle is all about, it's actually pretty interesting. It's an epistemological crisis about whether or not there is absolute truth and can we access it. So Shadow Teddy's argument is basically nobody has a real identity. Truth is what you make it. Do with that what you will, which can be liberating in its way. But Teddy does not take it that way. Teddy has basically a breakdown and crumples under this weight of basically having to create his own truth until he reasserts, no, there is absolute truth. I'm going to explode to prove it.
Yeah, so Shadow Teddy's kind of a nihilist, kind of a nihilist.
Yeah, he's sort of in the vein of Death of Sisyphus, Camus, Sartre, those dudes.
Yeah, and he emerges out of nowhere,
Excuse me,
and
Myth of Sisyphus. I
Ri-
apologize, not Death of
Rise
Sisyphus.
does. Oh, no problem. Rise does say while this is happening, I felt some sort of otherworldly force intervene. There's a little one line dropped before Teddy's shadow shows up. Like she feels a powerful force coming, and then Teddy's shadow shows up. You fight him. Teddy gets a persona, Kentucky Doji, which is a very cool persona. And I think like the character that they base Teddy's persona on is supposed to like wield a tomahawk, but for Teddy, they made it like this robot that holds a tomahawk missile, which is a cool design.
Oh, that's the. I was wondering why it had like a missile. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
Doesn't make sense. Does any of this make sense?
I mean, it's a cool design.
It is a cool
Neat.
design. I don't think it's necessarily supposed to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's Rise's shadow's a stripper, and then she turns into like a lady in an elegant dress with a radar for a face. It's weird. It's persona stuff. Atlas does this sort of thing. So once we defeat Shadow Teddy, Teddy gets a persona and can now fight alongside you. He ceases to be a support character, becomes instead an ice-wielding kind of magic attacker to complement Chie's ice-wielding physical attacking. And he also is kind of a secondary support. So if you want to get Yosuke the fuck out of your party, put Teddy in the party. That's how you do it. You replace Yosuke, and then you replace Chie with Kanji.
I swapped him for Kanji immediately. I don't know.
That's also very fair. But once you get Rise in the party, we start kind of focusing on finals for a little bit. And you get a little break where you mostly are focusing on social linking. How did everyone do in the finals, and what social links did you focus on? Em, you go first. How'd you do, and who'd you talk to?
Top of the class.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I got a special gift from Nanako because I did so well. She gives you a little trinket. And
Did you
I
equip the
guess
trinket?
I don't know if I remembered to equip it or not.
Oh, it's so good.
Does
It
it-
gives you +5 to every stat.
Oh, that is really good. Okay, I'll do that. If I go back to this game, I guess.
Yeah.
And what's the other question? Who did I
Who'd
social
you
link
really
with? during
focus
this time?
on socializing? Like, who are your favorite folks to socialize with? We've gotten further in. We've gotten access to most of the social links at this point.
I started doing the hospital social link, and I got like 3 things down, which she's very forward with you. A 16-year-old child working in a hospital, and this nurse seems to want to get in your pants real bad for some reason, and you tell her no, and she's like, that makes me want you more. So that was gross.
You can
What
also
were
let
some
her in
good
your
ones?
pants.
You could also just say, sure, why not? I did not, but
Probably for
I
the
guess
best.
you could right off the bat. The other ones, I got the Sun, the social link, to the point where Ayame was like, I would like to date you. And I was like, you know what? Sure. And Yukiko is also close to... Damn it, Samson.
Oh.
Yukiko is also close to dating status, which I guess is 8. Whenever it hits 8, you can just date.
Most of the love interests at around 8 will try to date you, except for Ebihara, who will try to date you sooner. But depending on how your dating goes, she may break up with you.
That's fair.
She also tries to jump off the roof.
What the fuck?
Yep.
Yeah, she's got a whole thing going on.
That escalate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
She wants to date soccer guy, but soccer guy isn't interested. And when you tell her that, she tries to jump off the roof.
Huh.
Yeah.
Is
It's a little sketchy.
Is that scripted, or like can you avoid that?
No, that's her social link.
That's just what she does.
Okay. That's very dramatic for a social link.
You talk her off the roof.
I mean, that's nice, but
And
also
then, like, well, you talk her off, and then she's like, we should date. Like,
And
That
you
was
date
not
to
way there.
yeah, you date to make Soccer Man jealous.
I don't think he would notice.
Yep. You
Okay.
see the flaw.
Yeah. Okay. As long as they're on the same page.
I don't know that she understands how futile what she's doing is, but main character, I mean, we could see. Pete, who did you spend time with, and how'd you do on your test?
I cheated on the test because I was like, I'm not fucking studying for this, so I just looked up the answers. So top of the class, number 1. I'm the best.
Academic integrity. What's
Yep.
that?
Mm-hmm. It's the college admission scandal all over again. So I did, like I said, I maxed out Nanako. I did a lot of Dojima. I committed to dating Reset. So I was like, whatever. I'm not going to date anybody else. I did get Chie pretty much all the way there. And then said no to her, which she took very well. I appreciated that. I met the old lady by the river. I am Death Lady.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where she goes. I didn't spend that much time with her. And I will say, if anybody needs advice for playing this game, I have one piece of ironclad advice that I just want to give everybody. Join the music club.
Yes.
Drama club is horrible. It's the saddest thing in the world. I hate spending time with her.
Why don't you? So M did not go down this path. Why don't you explain to M what
Yeah.
happens in Drama Club and the listeners? So, Music Club, for everyone who's listening, Music Club is just there's a nice girl who's not that good at the tuba or the trombone. Which one is it? She's not that good at her instrument.
She plays an instrument.
She's not good at it.
Yeah.
And her problem is she's not good at her instrument, and it makes her sad. And she wants to get better at the instrument, and she needs encouragement because she's very shy. That's her struggle. Pete, what's the struggle of Drama Girl?
God, so her father abandoned her and her mother when she was young, and now her father is dying and in the hospital, and her mother is encouraging her to reconnect. But she really doesn't like spending time in the hospital with this man she's never met who's slowly dying in front of her. That's her arc. I haven't finished it because it's horrible and I hate it, but that's as far as I've gotten so far. It's not.
I can't imagine why that would be uncomfortable for you.
Yeah, it's a little unpleasant, honestly.
I mean, and every time you talk to her about this, like, she is understandably distraught, but it's a bummer, you know? Like, a lot of the other social links are not constantly a bummer. Hers is a bummer all the time. Like, she doesn't get happier. She doesn't, like, realize that you're doing your best for her. She just gets progressively sadder, and then eventually she dates you, if you want that.
Ew.
Yeah. I just remember I went down her social link the first time I played this game, and as soon as that was finished, I was like, never again. I will go to band. I'm sorry.
This is why I made the switch and committed to Risei as my future partner. I was like, I just don't need this drama in my life right now. I'm trying to solve a murder. That's enough on my plate. Wild things are happening.
See, at this point, I'm working on trying to juggle all of the romanceable characters because who cares? This game doesn't. So why not? Why not just juggle all of them? All that happens if you juggle all of the girls is that your cutscene on Christmas is too long because you get too many messages on the phone.
Yeah. This is what Gino told me during my stream. You would just have to talk to every single person you are dating. And it takes a while.
They all send you messages and say, hey, I would like to spend time alone in your room on Christmas. And you have to decide which of the 20 messages that you've got you would like to invite to your room, because you can only invite one, because it'd be awkward otherwise.
Hang on a sec.
Yep.
Is this like a bachelor fantasy suite situation? Like, why do they want to come to my room?
You know why.
Is it like how heavy-handed? Like, this, so this isn't a subtle game in most cases.
They gotta give me my
Chocolate.
Christmas present.
Okay. All right. So it's clearly just candy, a brief hug, maybe a kiss on the cheek. And then leave.
It goes, you spent a while with character who went to your room, ...
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's subtler than I expected, honestly.
And all of the characters, like when you get to romance level with all of them, level 10 is always inviting them to your room. Always.
Gotcha. I expected and there to be you spent some time in the room, ... You see Yosuke in the corner.
He's moving his hand furiously. Speaking of Yosuke, we keep going after we rescue Rise. Next up, we get a little side story. I mean, there's another character who kind of suddenly appears because after we rescue Rise, something happens. Actually, something happens before all the tests. A body shows up after the fog. Whose body is it? We saved Rise. Who could have died? Who died?
It's our teacher, Mr. Maruka.
Mr. Muraoka.
Who the students lovingly call King Moron. He shows up dead, which everyone is like, "Wah! Have we been on the wrong track the whole time? He wasn't on the TV."
They're like, what? That old pervert died? Who could have thought?
Who would want to kill this man who was unpleasant every time we talked to him?
Just terrible. Like, Rise shows up and he's like, anyone who listens to idols is a fucking idiot. They have no individuality. They have no personality.
He's really the worst.
These idols, you spend $20, you can get a catalog of them wearing underwear. There's no risk. He's terrible.
I think someone literally says it's a shame that he couldn't see Rise is going to join our school. I saw him buying a magazine with her in it. And someone else is like, I don't think that's a good thing. That was probably creepy.
Yeah, it's probably bad that this teacher was buying a magazine of a 15-year-old that he might teach. Probably bad. Probably really bad.
Probably.
So, first off, that sends us off on Red Herring Land. But before we get to Red Herring Land, how do you feel about the new homeroom teacher, Pete?
Okay. All right. So, first off, let me ask this question. I don't remember her. Does the new homeroom teacher show up at any previous point in the game?
No. She emerges.
This is the first time we see her.
Yeah, Mrs. Kashiwagi emerges from the head of Zeus into your classroom.
Oh, God. Okay. This woman is another one who apparently is sexually attracted to teens, or at the very least needs the sexual approval of teens. So she's a 40, I think somebody describes her as on the wrong side of 40, if I remember the numbers correctly. Yet
they do.
Yet she dresses in clothes that would be a little scandalous for these high school students. She's not dressed as a professional. She's very much hitting on the male students and denigrating the female students as her competition in some sense. It's, again, a very sexually aggressive, even older than the nurse woman. She's not an improvement. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, she is the dark inverse of Kenshiro Muraoka. She is hitting on the male students and denigrating the female students instead of hitting on the female students and denigrating the male students. It's a choice to have these be your two homeroom teachers. She's not great. But after that, we start investigating what the heck happened to Professor Moroka. And it leads us in the direction of someone we have not seen before. Who is the person? You don't have to say his name, but like, what's his whole deal?
So I think we have seen this kid once before.
Yep.
But it is a brief appearance towards the beginning of the game. So we get the usual midnight channel. We check it, and there's a not blurry image. It's actually very clear. And there is a boy who is taunting the protagonist, saying stuff like, "Try and find me." And then that's sort of how it starts. And also Nauto is around at this point.
Yeah, Nauto gets called in from central booking, the prefecture. They say like basically whoever's higher up than the Inaba Police Department sends out this 15-year-old detective whiz to go solve the cases that Dojima and Adachi cannot solve. And within like a day, Naoto's like, yeah, it's this dude. He fingerprints and stuff, reasons. This is this kid. I think Mitsuo Kubo is his name, but Naoto does not drop that this person is the perpetrator. So you have to do your normal investigation before you can go into the TV to get him. But the party kind of backs into, oh, he was the murderer all along, because he asks Yukiko out and she says no. He stalks Rise a little bit, and when he talks at Rise, and she says he's the kind of guy who talks regardless of whether you're listening. After he stalks Rise, he talks about biker gangs and not liking them. And Kanji is like, that's why they got me. So we get probable cause on 3 of the victims, and also apparently he was obsessed with the TV announcer. He like talked about her at some point too. So we get backfill of all these reasons why this person might be the murderer. So how did you
Case
feel?
solved. We're done.
We're done. Wrap it up.
Pack it up. Also worth mentioning, this was right before or right after Naoto shows up and tells your team like, hey, we figured it out. You guys can stop messing around with this. And does Nauto know at this point that you are going into a TV to solve murders? Or does he just know, like, you're around all of these people?
I think he mentions the TV thing.
Yeah, it seems to be implied that he, like... Oh, we didn't even mention what happens to Teddy right before this.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll circle back around to that. Yeah, so Naoto knows something's going on with TVs. So, I mean, he should be able to explain it to all the higher-ups, and it'll be fine, right?
Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Cop's famously good about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nauto says it's solved. And slightly before this, Teddy... Pete, how would you describe what happens with Teddy?
So Teddy gets that glow up. Teddy comes out and he's having a hot bear summer. It turns out Teddy grew a body. He's a hot blonde now, and he's trying to get it too. Like, Teddy is not shy about where he's headed and what his priorities are in life. So he's become as horny as all the other teens now that he has a body that accommodates such horniness.
He heard the word score in Yukiko's dungeon once, and it became his entire identity.
Yep. When he was Flat Teddy, the last time you see him, he starts doing crunches, and then I guess if you do enough crunches, you will grow an anime boy inside you.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, it's basically a One Punch Man situation. He did
That's
100
why.
push-ups, 100 sit-ups.
Yeah. That's the only reason I train core, is so I can hopefully sprout a small anime boy one day.
We all dream that dream. But yeah, Teddy has the glow up, and man, the scene where he takes the zipper off, takes the head off, he's like, "Hey, I'm basically like a newborn in here."
It's like, this is going to be sort of a weird reference, but in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, when the one girl gets out of the pool
Yep.
and they slow it down and there's like sort of
Uh-huh.
water sparkling off her all the time. It's sort of like that, but with a sweaty boy in a bear costume.
Yes.
They have an anime cutscene specifically for this moment. I did not remember this part. I just remembered he comes out as a blonde, blue-eyed anime boy. But there's a whole little segment there. It's uncomfortable.
100%. And Yosuke is terrible about it, as usual. When Teddy comes out, Yosuke is like, "Hey, Kanji, Teddy your type?" And then Kanji says, "Oh, that's weird, Yosuke, that you would ask me, Kanji, could you please beat the shit out of me?" Which is a great retort.
Yeah.
So he continues to be terrible. Thankfully, Yukiko and Chie put all of Teddy's new clothes on Yosuke's tab, so fuck Yosuke. And we go on with the investigation. Teddy is now out of the TV and will now be in he's a real boy. He has a full Pinocchio situation going on. I didn't talk about like what I did in terms of social links and test. Came in first on the test. I've been spending time with Marie because she's the new one. I haven't seen her content before. I did enjoy the very getting started on Kanji's social link, because he has one of the best lines in the game when he talks to the manager of the Chinese restaurant and says, "I'll tear this place down if you make fun of me again, manager of this restaurant." And then you look at him like, "Kanji, you're not trying to be a delinquent anymore." And Kanji's like, "And when I say tear that down, I mean I'll tear this place down and then build it up twice as good. I'll renovate your ass."
Kanji too is just like a genuinely good dude, like helping kids, sewing things, making rabbits. Like Kanji's the inverse of Yosuke. Seems terrible, is actually great.
Yes, and he his whole thing with Teddy is like, I want to pet your fur. It looks very soft. It looks like it would be pleasant to touch. And Teddy being like, "Nah, you're weird, Kanji. You don't get to touch my fur. Only the girls get to touch my fur." Which, yeah, this game has... Guess what? Atlas has weird gender politics again. And it's homophobic a lot of the time.
Wild. Who could have seen that coming?
You don't say.
Not
Shocking.
Atlas. So the dungeon that we go to is called Void Quest. It looks like an old NES, Super NES RPG, which I think this is the best aesthetic that this game has.
Oh yeah,
It looks great.
is fun.
For sure.
Saying that as three people who like video games, it's pretty good.
Yeah, they nail the aesthetic. They do a good job of representing it in 3D. And I guess Mitsuo's shadow is a nihilist. He's very self-destructive. He basically, a lot of the other shadows have been very boisterous. Mitsuo's barely talks. And it's because Mitsuo thinks inside he means nothing. His life is meaningless. He has no one. He's super depressed. And his shadow is he is very boisterous and demonstrative. His shadow is a blank slate and barely talks, which is an interesting inversion of kind of how the other shadows have behaved. His boss fight is very cool. Pete, do you want to describe what the boss's deal is? Once the shadow reveals itself?
It starts off as like a floating psychic baby, sort of almost like a MODOK situation. And then it creates a Minecraft would like a Minecraft gladiator that it lives in, and you have to both defeat the gladiator and the baby to get out.
Yeah, so we get this baby, this child, who then creates a cocoon of video games around it, basically, to kind of be its protection and its way to interact with the world. So Sigmund Freud would love this shit. It's just a little baby, and then video games are its shield. And again, the boss design does so much work for the metaphors and for what they're going for here. I mean, it's not necessarily the most subtle stuff in the world, but it's every time they nail it, for the most part. Sometimes it's off-putting, like Rise's, but just visual design alone and the mechanics of the boss battle, you can generally get whatever the social stresses that these characters are under are. Em, how do you feel as a game designer? Like, how do you feel about the design specifically of the bosses? I think a lot of the mini bosses and regular shadows, like they're fine. Like they're regular RPG fare, but the bosses I think are where they flex their muscles.
Oh yeah. Like the one I always think of is Kanji's, because he's got the buff body where his head's sticking out of it, and he has two male symbols swinging around. They put a lot of work into the symbolism of the bosses. This one is no exception. Let's see, who else? Also Yukiko, the bird in a cage. They don't have to go very far for a lot of these.
Yeah, I mean, bird in a cage, and then she summons a prince, and then if you defeat the prince, she tries to summon another prince, and the princes stop coming.
Yeah, that was a really good, what's the term? When the mechanics and the narrative of the game come together.
It's the opposite of ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So ludonarrative
consonance?
Synchronicity,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Corporate synergy.
Exactly. Yeah, so whenever they can mesh these things, it's very effective. The baby building blocks around it in a form of a video game. I think we all know people who this could apply to.
For sure.
The world. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think those are the moments where I think this game hits its peak, and it's a shame that there are only 7, 8 boss fights in the whole game that are true boss fights. Like, you can get to super, like, if you go back to dungeons, you can fight super shadows that are stronger than the shadows you fought previously, but they don't have the same story build. They're just shadows. They repurpose sprites and everything, like character models and stuff. They just change the mechanics a little bit. Like, those are sometimes interesting fights, but they're not in the same way kind of evoking synergizing story and emotion and gameplay in the same way. So Kubo has a very interesting end to his fight, because unlike all the other characters who have grown to accept their shadows, Kubo rejects it to the end, and that leads to his shadow basically disappearing. So he loses the opportunity to gain, a persona power. You get him out of the TV, he gets arrested because he murdered Professor Moroka, but he's a copycat, it turns out. It's a red herring. Pete, how do you feel about the red herring plot?
It just seems like a little needlessly cruel, right? Like, all right, King Moran maybe deserved to die. I'm not going to defend him that much.
You didn't like the guy who said girls are going to be as pure as the driven snow?
And I'll make sure of it. No, he wasn't my favorite, if I'm being perfectly frank.
If he is your favorite, write in.
But here's a kid who's obviously very troubled, right? Like, this person, this child, this teenager is obviously mentally ill, and the game just sort of throws him out as thought it was over? No, you got about 40 hours left. He just seems like a tossed off plot device, And I mean, I know he's bad too, but I mean, every character is a little bit shitty in this game, except for the girl in music class.
Yeah, and like this game really, he feels like a runtime patter more than anything. Like it's clear that Nauto is an important character, and instead of going straight to Nauto, you have to have this swerve. It feels like, unlike all these other dungeons, which are kind of building your squad, you're building towards something, Kubo is definitely this red herring. I suppose if you have played this, if this is the first time you're playing the game, it's kind of an interesting thing, and I think the dungeon design is excellent, and so I don't mind this so much, but it feels like he is just the fill-in for summer vacation, right? Like, you've got summer vacation, you don't have all your social links available because you're not seeing your friends from school, so we need to find something for this team to do while that's happening. Yeah, I don't love how the game handles him, because he just basically gets arrested and then is gone. Like, the game doesn't really look back on him, the characters don't necessarily linger on what his depression was. Like, we don't go into that much. And he doesn't get a social link, so it's not like you're going to get to see more of him either.
Well, yeah, he's basically just like a weird guy from Yukiko's past. They toss him in as a way to sort of, digress, and then he's gone. And he's, in many ways, he's maybe the most troubled character in the whole game. Like, if you should save anybody, it's probably him.
Yeah, he's definitely not treated with the same level of detail that the other characters who get shadows are. So after this, we get a little scene on the beach where we get to go on summer vacation for a little bit. Pete, how did you feel about that one?
The beach trip?
Yeah, the beach trip.
Oh, man. So, look, again, props to Kanji. Kanji shows up. He's wearing a black Speedo. He knows what he's about. He's not super worried. I will admit, the Speedo falls off later. So, Kanji is sort of, suddenly on a nudist beach. Yosuke continues to be terrible, right? He's all about the bikinis. He's better on this one than he was on the camping trip. I'll give him that. But that's not a
false
struggle.
praise.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's
a low bar.
It's not exactly difficult. It's just another excuse for everybody to be kind of weird and the whole sort of sexual mores of the game to come to the forefront. And again, Kanji's the best part, as it usually is.
Agreed. So after that, we get to Naoto's dungeon. Nauto is a detective. Up until now, Nauto has always been referred to with male pronouns, and so Naoto's shadow is a scientist. It's Nauto in an ill-fitting lab coat that basically says they want to defy the laws of gender. And the setup for this location is I guess a secret hideout is how they describe it. From a TV show, like a kid's TV show. Like, it would be the secret hideout for a Kamen Rider character or a Power Ranger. So, who wants to take on the Nauto section? Pete? Do either of you have strong opinions on Nauto?
It's another, there's millions of things we could say about it, but it's another sort of like bait and switch. Seems like a too lackadaisical term for what they're doing, but it's sort of like Kanji adjacent. You know what I mean? Like, Kanji was the whole thing, like, oh, maybe he's gay, which, like, would have been interesting, right? They could have gone in that direction. They're like, no, he's just shy and likes to sew. And then Naoto's like, oh, maybe, like, Naoto's dealing with, her gender identity. And it's like, no, she just sort of wants to be taken seriously in a male-dominated profession. But there's also, what the biggest question I had, which maybe was a dumb question, but her parents were both detectives, right? Like, her mother and her father. So, like, how did her mom succeed? Like, couldn't Naoto have seen her mother's example and been like, oh, like, I can do it in the same way she did?
Probably. I mean, Nauto Similar.
That would
Go
take a
ahead.
little more analysis of Naoto's character. I feel like the fact that both of Naoto's parents were detectives kind of got lost in the mix. But, you know, there's a lot to talk about here.
I mean, the game dangles a trans narrative in front of you. It does everything it can to set up that that's what's happening. And then at the end, it's like, no, I didn't care about my gender at all. It was, in fact, that I wanted this career that I couldn't have.
I just
Because
wanted to be taken seriously.
It cannot be stressed enough. She's 15.
Yeah.
And like the fact that she dresses in traditionally masculine clothes, like we're like, oh, it's just because she wants to be taken seriously as a detective. Like none of that is really addressed again. At least until later in her social link. Like, it just sucks, you know? Like they could have treated it with any nuance. Like you don't have to say Nauto is entirely trans either. You don't have to say Naoto's a trans man. You can deal with this in a subtle way. It's like there's a bunch of different ways you could have gone with it, and this is the one that maximally dismisses all the premises that you brought in, right?
Do you think? Yeah, no, absolutely. Gino, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's asking, like, do you think things would be different? When did Persona 4 came out?
It came out in, let me look it up for us. Persona 4. And finish your thought, but I'll give you the year.
Yeah. So depending on when it came out, I mean, I feel like the whole like concept of being non-binary, while like obviously a thing that's been around forever, wasn't in sort of the mainstream capacity that a video game could utilize it at the point Persona 4 existed. You know what I mean?
And in
So
Japan,
maybe,
it's harder.
yeah, maybe this is a different arc now when you don't have to make those sort of concrete statements. You can say like, look, Nauto is what Nauto is. You know what I mean? And we don't have to label things beyond that necessarily.
Yeah, so Persona 4 came out in 2008, and the game takes place in 2011.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
That.
the future.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is different now when sort of the idea of being non-binary is more mainstream.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like the Persona 5, had Persona 5 not come out and handled any sort of gender issue or sexuality issue terribly, like if it didn't create multiple gay stereotype characters and have the same gay panic stuff that 4 did, I would say yeah, but I don't think Atlas is the company that would do this well. Like, a company could do this well. Atlas ain't it, unfortunately.
They sure have tried over and over again to do this in multiple games, and at some point you just gotta like, maybe we're not the ones to handle these narratives.
Part of me says that, but they're not punished for it.
In
Yeah, that's true.
Atlas's defense, they made the best dodgeball game I've ever played.
What game is that?
Shit, I forgot the name of it.
It made a big impression on you.
It did. It was the old GBA game. I can't even find. It might just be called. No, give me a second. I'll come back.
Super Dodgeball Advance.
There you go. You can see now why I forgot the name of it. Can you?
I remember this by the box image alone.
It was a good game.
Yeah, so I mean, it's frustrating, you know, like this game, it keeps raising topics, and then when we get to the core of whoever the character is and what their dilemma is, it always veers away at the last second. And Nauto, I think, is as egregious or more egregious than Kanji, although to a certain extent, Kanji's dilemma of, you know, maybe he's gay, maybe he's bi, maybe he's it's purely sexual attraction based. Like his gender identity, I think, is pretty firmly cis. Like he's Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho. You know, he's the manly man character. But actually, he's, you know, dealing with this other thing underneath. But Nauto, like, there's gender fluidity going on. Sexuality doesn't really come in until later on with Nauto, like her attraction, unless you date her for a good long while, or, social link with her for a good long while. And I feel like it's worthwhile to jump ahead to... So neither of you have ever finished Naoto's social link, correct?
No.
There is the ability in her social link to basically say that you like when she acts like a girl.
Yeah, I do remember this, actually.
And so in Japanese, it's done by having her use a more feminine pronoun instead of, I think she uses boku, which is traditionally, at the time it was a very traditionally masculine way of referring to oneself. And in the English, I think it's more like, I like when you wear dresses or something like that, or I like, it's something in those lines. And depending on what you tell her, if you hang out with her on Christmas, if you tell her you like her when she's feminine, she shows up dressed in women's clothes, and by that I mean like a girl's school uniform.
Of course.
Instead of her normal getup, and then that's like the one where, and I think she says something along the lines of like, you let me be my true self, when wearing that outfit.
I don't know about that one, Chief.
You don't know? You don't think that that's the most nuanced way to handle things?
Maybe, I don't know.
Dial that one back?
Yeah. Japan has a lot of hang-ups about a lot of these issues, even today. So I don't know if when this game released in 2008, this was like panned. I know it was, because fan fiction has been dealing with this since this game came out. Wasn't great.
I would say it was panned in publications that were socially conscious in a way. This game obviously got incredibly high scores, and no amount of handling LGBTQ issues was going to hold back the 5 out of 5s for this game. It would, I mean, even today, like any of the sites that would give demerits for this poor handling probably don't even use review scores anymore. So I don't know if it would even hit Metacritic. But yeah, there were pretty immediate takes soon after this game came out that critiqued all of these clear. I mean, I wouldn't say it like they did what they set out to do. It's just disappointing. Like, this game pulls up issues all the damn time and then doesn't deliver on them. And I don't think it's anyone's fault for reading exactly what Atlas was trying to do. And then when after the game for 4 to 5 hours is feeding you, oh, this is a trans narrative, or oh, this is a homosexuality narrative, and then it yanks the chair out from under you. Like, that's not your fault. When, in the last second of dialogue, it's like, actually, I just want a career.
I just like wearing shirts and pants instead of skirts.
I don't like the feeling of wind between my knees.
Yeah.
I like to be way too warm in the summertime.
Like, I don't know. We could go on about this for a while.
Yeah, we don't need to keep going, but it's kind of a bummer,
Yeah.
And so I think we're kind of reaching the end of this section of Persona 4 we played. Do we need to play more? That's the central question, because
I don't think so.
I think we're done here.
I think we're good. I mean,
all right, if we're
ahead.
not going to play more, I do have one question that, Gino,
Yes.
maybe you can answer. So
Yes.
we'll just spoil everything now, if everyone's cool with it. Yeah?
I'm cool with it.
Okay. Why is Adachi involved in all this? I don't get his motive.
Why is he a criminal?
Why?
Yeah.
Why is Adachi?
Why, Adachi? Yeah, like why is he involved in the murders? Because I read
So
somewhere he was, but I didn't get why.
he is the murderer. He is the murderer because he hates this small town. He hates being there. He's from a big city. He was stuck out in the boonies because I guess he did poorly on an exam or something. He got assigned out from Central as an investigator in this small town, and he's bored. And he gets this power to send people into the TV, and he thinks that this will make his life more interesting. And he's also a misogynist, so like he hits on
okay.
like when they like interview Mayumi Yamano, the woman who's first murdered, he like hits on her, and she turned like while he's questioning her as a detective, and she rebuffs him, and he pushes her into the TV, and that's how he learns he has this power. And then he hits on Saki Konishi, and she turns him away because she's 16, and it's gross. And he shoves her in the TV. And after he murders 2 people, he gets drunk on... Like, he doesn't actually put anyone else in the TV. It's not him who's kidnapping all the other people. It turns out Mayumi Yamano, the woman who has an affair, like the announcer, she has an affair with a local congressman, I think. And it's the congressman who's been kidnapping people. He has the power to put people in the TV too. But he doesn't know that the people who died the first 2 times died because they were in the TV. So he thinks that he's putting them in the TV to save them from being murdered. And because your team keeps rescuing the people who he puts in the TV, he never learns that he's actually putting them in danger. He thinks he's saving them.
Okay. So it's all super confusing, and there's no really good motive.
I mean, when Adachi goes full mask off, he's like, these bitches out here wouldn't show me the time of day.
So he's an incel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
pretty much.
Great.
Pretty much.
So like the worst possible person in the world. Awesome.
Not only that, but he's also like completely unsubtle. Like it's not like you're thinking, oh man, Adachi, I really feel for you. And that's why when they gave him a social link in Golden, I thought that was really intriguing because that makes him more humanized than the original game ever made him. Like, you start to get the feeling that he's really lonely and how much he dislikes being in this place that he's forced to be for his job. But the original game just was like, he's Dojima's shitty, comic relief sidekick for most of the game. And then he goes mask off and he's like, these bitches need to die. And I've needed entertainment. Ha ha ha. And he's a laughing maniacal villain. And there's actually one villain beyond Adachi, and it's a Persona game. You have to fight a god. And basically there was a god that gave you, Adachi, and I think Namatame is the name of the councilman, that gave you guys the power. It's the person at the gas station who shook your hand when you first got to town.
That motherfucker. I knew he was behind all this.
Yeah, it turns out that character, and then the first time you dream of going into the shadow the TV world, that's the final dungeon, like that section. And it turns out that it's a god who wanted to see like what's humanity's true nature, and so she gave the power to put people in the TV to you, who's like neutral and innocent, Adachi, who's evil, and Namatame, who's misguided, to see what humanity will do. And then the Midnight Channel, basically every time the Midnight Channel happens before someone's in the TV, what you're seeing is what society thinks of this person. It's whoever society has focused its eye on and how they see them. And then once they're in the TV, it's kind of their inner self brought out. So there's this dichotomy, like the grainy footage is society's interpretation of a person, which is why Rise is bustier in the grainy version than she is in real life.
Because society just assumes she's busty?
Because it wants to see her that way. It wants to see her hypersexualized.
Okay.
And so she is in that version. Kanji in the TV, like when he's in the grainy footage, he's a biker. He's violent. He's not in the bathrobe. So you see all of these. Actually, I forget if he's in the bathrobe. It doesn't. The metaphor doesn't work super well sometimes. But it's a shame. Like we're probably not going to see one of the more interesting dungeons, which is Namatame's dungeon. So do you want more spoilers or?
Is there more spoilers?
Well, Nanako. I told you that.
I know about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need to max Nanako and Dojima because Nanako's going to get thrown in the TV, and you have to rescue her. And
I've read all too. So.
Yeah, you'll have to. Dojima and Nanako will not be available after that point. And Namatame's dungeon is heaven. Because he thinks he's a savior. He's got a Jesus complex. So his final form is it's like a messiah. He's got peace signs all over the place. It's a really cool design again. But yeah, the game kind of keeps going on this direction. You eventually find the truth, and it does have an interesting choice kind of later on because after you defeat Namatame, you can say case solved. Or sorry, after you defeat Adachi, you can say case solved. And if you say actually there's something fishy here, you get the true ending, like you go on and you fight the final boss. If you don't do that, then the game ends and you get a bad ending, basically. There are 3 bad endings in this game. And that's one of the inflection points.
What are the bad endings? What happens?
So one bad ending is, I think if you don't catch Adachi... if you don't catch Adachi, I think it's after Namatame, you have a series of questions where you can fail to figure out that it's Adachi. In that case, fog just keeps leaking out of the TV, and the TV world takes over more and more of Japan. If you capture Adachi, you leave Inaba, your friends, wave you goodbye, and there's still a greater power out there. It implies that the mystery's not solved and it's gnawing on you. And then if you get the true ending, you hang out with your friends and you get the postscript everyone went on to have great lives.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I feel like there was a lot of stuff that was kind of cool in the back end of this game that unfortunately the structure of the game makes it go from maybe 10 hours to 80. I would really like to see some of these back end stuff, but I don't want to go through the hassle of making my social links better every single day. So shorter games, please.
Yeah, this game, the loop is just too fucking long. Getting all your social links, getting all your persona set up so you maximize every time you hang out with someone, studying, going to all these different places, doing the fetch quests so that the fox will give you cheaper items, running through the dungeons which get longer than 11 floors, which is just too much. Too much of that design. This game, on revisit, this is a great game if you're 14 and you have a summer vacation and you have nothing else going on. This game will fill as much time as you are willing to give it. The problem is its serving size is so big that if you do not have a lot of free time, it's almost impossible to make meaningful progress in a short burst. Which is why, for those who know this podcast through Giant Bomb, the original Giant Bomb endurance run was Persona 4, and it lasted over 100 episodes. It was 200 episodes or something, because they played in 30-minute bursts, and you make almost no progress in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I was streaming this game, and the first 30 minutes, I literally just wandered around looking for what I needed to do in that particular day, because there was nothing interesting to choose from. So, I mean, I forgot I could fast travel, but that's beside the point. I think I still would have been, it feels very much like you want to have the optimal route And a lot of the optimal paths are not accessible in the first playthrough because, like, your stats are too low, or, you know, you need a certain social link to be at a certain point. And so it just feels like there's a lot that's restricted and it's blocking a lot of the interesting stuff. Like, I feel like we got out of the, like, introductory chapters, basically. I know we were getting a lot of, like, middle stuff, but I don't know. It felt like we just got to, like, unraveling things, and then we're like, 80 hours left to this game. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing is the act of playing this game is a slog. You have to go every day. You have to make a decision about what you want to spend your time doing, where you want to go, who you want to hang out with. You want to maximize all these things. You want to be upping your stats. You want to be constantly fusing personas. You want to, you know, make sure that on Sundays you see the TV show so that you can buy items. You want to make sure that you send your prize tickets from buying the items so that you get more free items. You can go fishing. You can get way into model making. Like, there's a million and one things to do in this game, and some of them are non-negotiable, some of them are negotiable, but it leads to a lot of analysis paralysis. It leads to a lot of wandering around, and then the gameplay loop of the dungeons just isn't that enticing, unfortunately. The fighting isn't very good compared to more modern games. It's really, you know, rocks, paper, scissors, elements stuff, and I don't know about you, but every battle felt the same because I would go, okay, main character use the element that my other three party members can't use. Second character use their element. Third character use their element. Fourth character use their element. If any of them had a critical hit, that's now the only element I ever use against this enemy. And then if those four elements didn't cover it, I would attack them physically. Then I'd use dark and light to see if I just got insta-kills on the enemy. And that's every fight.
Yep,
like,
that's it.
There's not much more nuance than that, and you just kind of have to know, okay, this enemy reflects physical attacks, so I can't physically attack it. This enemy will, use light attacks, so I probably want to have a light persona equipped so that I'm immune to instant death, because, again, if your main character dies, you die. But, like, that's it. That's pretty much the nuance of this game, which is a bummer, you know? Like, I remember this game very fondly. I played it for a very long time, and it still holds a special place in my heart. But it's a type of game that the story and its moments where it has high highs, where you're really endeared to the characters, where the social links really fly and really sing, unfortunately are behind like 30 to 40 hours of slog. And it's not like, you know, some of the other role-playing games where if you're especially quick about them, like, say, for example, another favorite of mine, like Final Fantasy VIII. If you're good at that game, you can beat it in 10 hours, and it's not especially hard to do so. This game, I think the speedruns are still like 20, 30 hours long. Like,
oh, yeah.
And that's not reading anything. That's not getting any of the fun parts. Like, if you speedrun FF8, you get through the combat really, really quickly, and then you're just basically dealing with the story stuff, and you could just focus on the fun stuff. In this game, like, there's just so much. I need to go to the diner. I need to eat, you know, a bowl of noodles, and then I need to go talk to this fetch quest. You know, there's just so much stuff going on. M&P, this was not the first time you've both engaged with the game, but how did you feel about kind of the loop now that we're kind of stepping away and looking back? Pete, did you feel it was overwhelming? Like, did you enjoy it?
Like the amount? Like, just the sheer level of stuff?
Yeah, the amount, the volume, like the serving size here.
I mean, the fact that you have to get, like, let's just say 2 podcasts into a game before you assemble the whole team, like, that just seems staggering. You know what it makes me feel like? It makes me feel like I was never this kid in high school, but like the overscheduled, like, type A kids who need to maximize every second of every day. Like, it almost feels like that. Like, it's not relaxing. Like, even when I'm spending time with my friends in the game, which should be fun and enjoyable, and it sometimes is, My main concern is, would I be better off spending time with different friends in order to maximize those social relationships because I'll have an opportunity for this one later? Like, there's just too much.
Yeah, like you're constantly thinking about, well, this friend is at a point where I'd have to spend a day with them and not even advance a social link. Should I wait till I have my finals, because my finals will boost all of my school relationships? So I actually shouldn't spend any time with them. And there's always the critical flaw of, once you get to level 10 with a character, you should never spend time with them again. Like, Pete, you said you got to level 10 with Nanako, she told you she loved you, and then...
She's dead to me. She's dead to
Exactly.
me until she actually might die, and then I have to save her.
So, like, that's a bummer.
It's a very gamified version of relationships, in that you want to always be saying the most efficient thing, and you want to spend your time in the most efficient way, which we've discussed this in the past with other games. I believe we did a full episode on like relationships in games, where it's hard to like manifest these systems in a way that feels realistic. And seeing it actually in practice, it does not feel correct. It feels very, as we said in the last podcast, I think sociopathic to a certain extent, where you're just like ruthless in your way you're approaching these relationships with people who should be your friends. But I don't know. I feel like there is a avenue you could play this game where you just don't look at it in the numbers fashion, and you could probably still beat the final boss with whatever. I don't know how strong your personas would be, but if you're not...
Oh, you cut out for a second. Did the cat get the cables again? Cat probably got the cables again.
Yeah. How about now?
You're good now.
Okay. Where was I?
You were saying you could probably beat the game without min-maxing everything.
Oh, yeah.
Probably get to the final boss.
Yeah, like the social links are the main draw of the game. I think, like, I don't think anyone's coming to the Persona series for like the fighting enemies in dungeons. It's more about like how you're relating to people. So if you didn't have to worry about like, are my stats going to be boosted enough by talking to so-and-so now, and there was just like story, it could probably be fairly compelling, but it wouldn't be the same game. And I don't know if it's better or worse if you went that route.
Well, I can tell you that when I first played this game, I was not so ruthless with min-maxing. I've learned most of these strategies through playing the game the first time. And I was able to get through it. Like, I remember the final boss fight, I was just like throwing items at the final boss to try and get it dead, because I had not min-maxed as appropriately as you could. And I think I felt better about the game than I feel about it now, just because I made decisions based on who I liked the most. Like, there were certain social links that I just never completed because I didn't like them. Like, did either of you get Naoki Konishi? Saki's brother?
Oh, no, that one sucked too.
Yeah, I met him once, and then I was like, I don't even know how to progress this thing.
You have to find him in school and talk to him after you meet him the first time. But his storyline, I didn't find him especially compelling, and so I just never hung out with him the first time I played through this game. And, like, I felt more like, I think I'm just going to hang out with, the basketball kid, because he's fun. And I didn't worry about the fact that, well, if I, finish the soccer social link now, then I won't have this access to this event on Tuesdays and Wednesdays that will fill in gaps later on. I should actually progress everything steadily, a little bit at a time. So, like, I got to experience those stories closer to linearly, whereas now there might be, 10 hours between the last time I hung out with a certain person. and I just lose the thread on what their social link was all about, which is kind of a bummer, you know? It's a shame that this game has such strong incentives, makes them all very transparent to you, and makes clear that if you are not maximizing all of these systems, you are clearly missing out. Like, if some of this stuff was obscured a little bit or made less salient, I think the game would be better for it, because you'd be spending time with the people you want to spend time with. It also would help if there was a system that made hanging out with people after Social Link 10 worth a damn. Like, you can do it.
Literally anything. Give me an item. I don't care. Give me something that I couldn't get otherwise. Like, boost their stats. I don't know. Something.
Games.
Do a game thing, please.
Yeah. So, I think in the end, like, Persona 4, good game still. Kind of disappointing in some spots where it hasn't held up to modern standards. But I think it just shows that the Persona, like, they needed the shakeup that 5 gave them mechanically, for sure. Because 3 and 4 play very similarly. 5 plays a little bit. There's a little bit more depth to it, especially with the dungeons. Like, what 5 did with dungeons, oh my goodness. Mwah! Outstanding. You made dungeons that weren't just randomly generated dungeon crawls. Way to go. And they had, like, quick time events sort of stuff. Like, that 5 made an important leap. But I would really like to see a slimming of these games. They don't need to be this long. And I would like to see a little bit more, I guess, deference to playstyles that are non-completionist. Because this game tries to put you on a completionist track very early on. It incentivizes you heavily to go that direction. And I don't think that that's in its best interests. So, with that, I think we're done with Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4. Write in what you think, if the game still holds a special place in your heart. If you want to hear more about it, I would be potentially interested in doing something off week, finishing the game, but not necessarily. It's not going to be the main week show, that's for sure. And with that, Pete, it is now your turn to pick a game again.
It is. So I'm going to pick a game that I was thinking about picking previously, but picked a different game instead. So I'm going to return to my adventure game roots, and I want to play After Party.
Ooh.
Yeah, so After Party is a game where you are 2 friends who wind up in hell. I assume they're dead, but who knows? And in order to get out, you have to out-drink the devil. So it's a game about binge drinking in hell. Woo.
Yay! Binge drinking? Why would that be in hell and not heaven?
Because everybody continues to binge drink after they leave high school and college. Because we love it so much.
Because everyone loves it. Everyone's like, this is what we do now. Yeah, so great. Awesome. This is actually a game I saw at PAX East like 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought that it looked very cool. So excited to play this. So thank you, Pete, for hanging out and playing this game.
Yeah,
any final
absolutely.
thoughts on Persona 4?
Yeah, second time I looped around with it. Honestly, I like the Persona series for the things it's good at, and hate it for the things it's bad at. I don't know that it fits into my life anymore, is my main issue with it.
Em, what do you think? Any closing thoughts?
It definitely has a time and a place. I think that maybe it's just not for us at this point in our lives. If it's for you, more power to you. But I'm just going to stick with whatever fanfiction.net decides is the actual story of the game.
Always a good decision. And thank you, listeners. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. And you can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace!